Hi, Alex. Welcome.
Hello, Anne.
So lovely to have you here. So, you have done the Happy Without Histamine program with us and wanted to let people know your story. So, would you be able to let us know what life was like for you before you came across us and started the program? What challenges were you facing?
Yes, so over a period of a couple of years, my health was deteriorating. A key symptom was blood sugar problems. I'd wake up feeling just dreadful, or I'd suddenly have a blood sugar crash sort of in the middle of the day or sometime, and I started eating more and more to try and ward it off. And I was always bringing food with me everywhere, and also I was, sorry, I'm just having a mental blank now. It wasn't just blood sugar. Oh, that's right, the heat. I was having
Heat.
a lot of trouble in the heat. And that had not been true previously. I would have always have said I was very good in summertime. But starting a few years ago, I started to have a real problem in the heat. And I started getting tingling sensations in my peripheral, my hands and feet, and my energy was just becoming my energy. I was having terrible energy problems. That reached a kind of a crisis point in the very early part of last year in 2025, where I had to take time off work, and my mental health was very poor, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I started to feel very ill in ways which it's hard to describe any other way, just very sick. It seemed to be
Yeah.
to do with my food, but I couldn't tell what I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on. But all I that combination, that sort of triple thread of problems together was had led me to an absolute nervous breakdown situation, as well as a physical inability
Mm.
to function.
Yeah. And I noticed you had sensitivities to sounds or smells or light.
Oh, yeah, I had a huge range of symptoms. I did write them all down, but there were so many, and they were unprecedented for me. I didn't know where they'd come from. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't account for them. I was, I found I couldn't lie down after a while in the nighttime. Lying down and my head touching the pillow, I found was caused me to feel very anxious. I was having terrible
Mm.
anxiety, and so much so that I was not reasonable. All in all, it was a desperate situation.
And some headaches as well.
Oh, yeah, yes, headaches all the time, aches all the time. Yeah, pardon me. I didn't bring my list of symptoms, but I do have it from that time. And I took a whole bunch. I went to hospital, was tested, and they didn't find what they were looking for might have been causing my problems with blood sugar. But I was wearing an insulin monitor, and that certainly
Mhm.
confirmed that when I was feeling extremely bad, I was also having low blood sugar.
Okay, so there's hypoglycemic episodes of the blood sugar dropping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so was that connected to the dizziness as well alongside? And
The major, there were days when it was just low the whole day, and I felt just absolutely dreadful the whole day. I don't have words for how bad I felt. And nothing seemed to lift the blood sugar. It wouldn't matter. Eating didn't seem to help, or if it did only for a short period of time, it was like I was having some kind of autonomic dysfunction that didn't seem to be able to be affected by anything. Yeah, dizziness. I had to be very careful walking up and down stairs, but I wasn't doing a lot of walking because I was so dreadfully tired.
fatigue as well,
Yeah.
brain fog, you sort of
Yes.
had all of that
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. Absolute real brain fog. I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I was. I would just sit there staring at the wall. Really.
And what was it that you thought might have been going on at the time?
I had been living in a house which had. We were during over the few years ago. This is Canberra. We had a very wet period. I think probably the whole of Australia had a La Nina wet period, but I was living in a house which had there was quite a lot of mould. And I don't know that was the cause, but I did have kind of chronic sinusitis for a couple of years before this, which was unusual. Like, no, that's not a usual thing for me to have. So I could easily imagine that might have been a contributing factor. I honestly, I had no clue. And I eventually settled on long COVID simply because I had seen a hospital doctor when I'd gone in for at one point. I'd gone in because I was feeling so bad, and he said, "I think you might have long COVID." And I latched onto that because something.
Yeah.
And but then at a certain point, I had a realization, or maybe this is a histamine related problem, and that was because of I came to that in a backward way because when I was doing the kind of desperate reading around that people do when they have chronic health problems that come out of nowhere, I found people suggesting that you could take antihistamines and they might help. And I did start, and I talked to my doctor, and he said, "Have a go. You can have more than the usual dose and fairly safely." So you try it out. And it did seem to make a bit of difference, not enough, but it made a little bit. And I thought, oh, wow, maybe it is a histamine problem then. And then, so then that led me to changing my diet to try and see if that would work. And it did seem to make a big difference to some, not all, but I didn't feel so terrible if I was careful with what I was eating. Like when I was eating the high histamine foods, I just felt absolutely dreadful. I don't know, yeah, I don't have the words for it, but I can't even remember now. I don't want to remember now how I felt, but certainly I felt like I was going crazy when I was eating the wrong
Yeah.
foods.
Yeah. That makes sense. Histamine can be linked a little bit to the anxiety because there's a bit of a connection there with that and with other things that you've talked about having as well. There are links, flushing as well, the hay fever symptoms that you were talking about, the sinus stuff. So, yeah, you basically were looking at what is this? Is it chronic fatigue syndrome? Is it long COVID? Dysautonomia, mast cell? What is this?
That's right. All of those terms were me poring over my computer every day, trying to find anyone who could suggest something. And I was trying to find a mainstream medical practitioner who might help and who was specializing in, say, long COVID, because that was what I was going with. That seemed to be, it was fairly recent. It seemed, yeah, this is new. This problem I was having only really started in late 2022. So it figured that it could have been something to do with COVID.
Yeah.
But I was having no luck finding a medical practitioner. And then my sister said, why don't you just look for someone who is dealing with some of these things who isn't a medical practitioner? It's not a standard medical practitioner thing. And that's how I found Happy Without Histamine. And when I read your website, and it felt like, wow, every single thing that was on your main page, yes, that's all fits with what's going on with me. So immediately I suddenly felt, wow, finally there seems to be someone out there who is talking the language which makes sense to me.
Yeah. And you tried quite a lot of things at that point. And
Yeah, so I've been to hospital, and they'd starved me for several days to try and see if I had something called a insulinoma, which is apparently a bit of occult insulin producing tissue, but that I didn't have that. I must say I didn't realize how long I could go without eating food for as well. So that was impressive. Probably not that long, but I hadn't eaten for 2 and a bit days, and that was
feels like a long
felt like a
time.
long time to me. Um, and to be honest with you, there weren't a lot of treatment options I could find apart from the things I was already doing, which was cutting back on histamine containing foods. And of course, as you know, much better than me, the advice out there is very hard to follow. And I was not, really wasn't sure what to do or how to do it. I knew I'd felt the right path. It did seem if I cut back on certain foods, I felt a lot better. Though, like I say, not when I say a lot better than absolutely dreadful, but still not really great either.
Like 10% better is,
Yeah, I didn't feel terrible, but I still had energy problems, and I would wake up in the morning with crippling anxiety. Like I just would, for the first hour, I just have my head against the bed, hugging myself, trying to just get through it. It seemed to be
yeah,
worst in the mornings.
yeah, yeah. And I see that quite a bit with that morning anxiety. And so you decided to take the plunge and jump in with us.
Oh, I look at the moment I became aware of your program, I was just scared that there wouldn't be room for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. There was, which was great. And you came in and learned about a lot more than you were initially thinking, the nervous system component.
Oh, yeah. And can I say, so firstly, the online resources, which going into the program, my focus was really on the dietitian advice and the histamine advice. But of course, the program is rich with resources, and I was very motivated. So I was using all of them. But some of them to do with the relationship between chronic anxiety and health, even though I guess I was aware of it before, but I hadn't. The resources are very high quality, and so presented it to me in a way which I was unfamiliar but very effective. And I had not, I would not have called myself an anxious person prior to the course. If someone had said to me, "Do you have anxiety problems?" I would have said, "No, I'm pretty laid back or whatever." But I didn't realize how deep it ran, so I wasn't at all able to recognize it in myself. Something that probably other people recognize, but I did not. And so the thing which ultimately I think was the most the presentations of ideas were important, but the map sessions were the thing I think which made a huge difference to me. I think that those sessions brought up from a fairly deep place reasons for my anxiety, and these reasons were quite deeply buried, so I wasn't aware of them, and that's why I would have said, if someone had asked me, "Have you got any reasons for being anxious?" I would have said, "Oh, I don't think so," but I did have really good reasons for being anxious, I guess you could say, and the map sessions were very potent in bringing that up. I would say, in the first quarter of last year, I think I cried more than my entire rest of my life by a factor of 5. I spent a lot of time crying in the first part of last year, and I'm not naturally much of a crier, but I was then, and so there was a lot going on emotionally for me. I think that for me, the Happy Without Histamine course was very effective in raising to my attention something which I would have discounted, really. I would have discounted the importance of emotions processing. I would have paid lip service to it, but I didn't take it seriously. I didn't, for myself, think that's a really good reason why I might be having the problems I was having. And so I'd say that in terms of as a revolution in my thinking, I'd now put the emotional side of things as the first ranked factor which I would want to consider. There's not normally a program like Happy Without Histamine which actually will place that front and center and give you resources which you can use to help yourself in that regard. Look, I think everyone wants to feel like they're having an impact, and nobody likes to feel helpless and powerless. And I think it could just be a natural human thing in a way that if you can't help somebody, rather than thinking that you simply don't have the tools and the skills to do that or the understanding, it's easier in a sense to say that person doesn't really have a problem. But
Yeah.
of course, this is exactly the issue when you're dealing with something like, for example, histamine problems, which are not well recognized at all. I went to a specialist here, and they really wrote off histamines. They said, "Oh, they didn't have any opinion. They had no guidance at all." And yet, at that moment, that was the only thing I could see that seemed to make any sense, actually. The only thing that seemed to be having any impact on my health in a positive way was cutting back on high histamine foods.
And the fact is that we know that our nervous system controls every single part of our body. And the fact that the nervous system is dismissed as the factors into how it can be affecting your body, these illnesses are not made up, they are real. It's your nervous system is really doing these things in your body out of its own way of trying to actually help. It's trying to keep the body in homeostasis, it's trying to keep the body safe, but it's just not working.
No, and I think it's remarkable in a way that it's not as if the underpinning science is lacking to support this worldview. It's actually
Yeah.
been around quite a long time, but
20 years of this research.
it's just that I don't think that has permeated very effectively into the kind of advice you will receive from most of the mainstream practitioners who I was able to see.
Yeah, it's starting to become more mainstream in the online world and more known about in the online world. But yeah, when you're talking to practitioners, that the training from science takes around about 20 years to filter down into medical programs. And so it does take quite a long time for everyone to get on board.
Yeah, and so I think, like I did say to myself, and when I was ill, when I was in a position to think such things, if I ever find a solution, I really would want other people to know what I found. And I think that in this kind of situation, when you're dealing with a chronic problem where you just cannot find any mainstream, that your regular doctor or anyone in a hospital or anyone else for that matter that you find does not have any answers for you, and you really are pushed back onto the internet and madly looking through chat rooms and so on, and it can feel very lonely. And I'm sure
Extremely.
anyone who watches this video will acknowledge what I'm saying. And so it is such a relief to finally find someone or something, in this case, the program, where it feels like, yeah, this is definitely the right path. I don't know what's leading me, but I know I'm on the right path. And certainly I was. It was really did save my life, probably. It was a big deal to get into the program and to have hope and to actually then improve my health. And I think too that it's taking one step in the right direction is worth 100 steps in the wrong direction. There's actually a poem I like where there's a line which goes, "He who once hath missed the right way, the further he doth go, the further he doth stray." And I think that's very much the case with these things, that the moment I was in the program, I was now taking steps in the right direction, and they might have been small, but because they were in the right direction, I was improving all the time. And that, of course, is incredibly reassuring. And I think you can put up with quite a lot if you think you're going in the right direction.
And the community as well. There are other people who are also having the same kinds of problems. It's not just me. I'm not crazy, right? There are other people out there, and this has helped them and it can help me.
Oh, indeed. And of course, that's the great thing about the program is that, of course, the very fact that the program resources exist reassures me that a lot of people must be going through what I'm going through, because these resources actually do exist. Because the resources are only there because they've been demonstrated to work.
Yeah, because if you didn't join the program and if you were still in the internet rabbit holes, like,
Oh,
how do
yeah.
you think it would have gone?
That's right, because this is the thing about that, in a sense, there's only one right way. Like what for me, cutting out histamines was important, but nobody wants to, and nor is the program really designed around a person spending the rest of their life cutting back on
Absolutely
histamine
not.
created foods. I'm completely unrestricted in the foods I eat now. And
Perfect.
that's a dream for me, as I was, because probably the major benefit actually I got from a certain point of the program when I was doing these various breath tests to work out if I had SIBO and things like that is I lost a lot of weight. My God, you should see my Weight Watchers app. It's fantastic. It goes down like a 747 in a nose dive, and I actually show it to people. I say, look, cutting back on calories really will help you to lose a lot of weight. But of course, that wasn't the intention. But like I say, at the time, the idea that I might have to be on this highly restricted diet for the rest of my life was really quite a confronting idea. And it wasn't actually I wasn't even into the program that long before I started realizing that I could eat a lot more. I was now comfortable to eat a bigger range of foods than I had been. And I'm sure there's a range of factors for that, but I think it wasn't actually primarily the dietary changes and the supplements I was taking, which I'm still glad I was taking, but I think it was what I was doing with my nervous system. It made I was in such a bad mental health situation that I was scared of everything. I would have a panic about anything, and calming myself down was a really big deal. And the resources, I started doing the map sessions all the time. And when I could do work let me, I went part-time for a while. And so I had time to do these map sessions. And it really did feel like I was able to stop panicking all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I've had quite a few people, they do the MAP sessions. I had one client say, I did the MAP sessions and now my flushing stopped. And it was just like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then for other people, it's other resources in the program. That I just saw a client this morning and she's like, my anxiety's gone. And after a few months of using the tools.
I think everyone's in a general, all of us have got our own unique path, but I think that there's some really strong commonalities too. And I think for a start, all the different program components work together synergistically. So you won't really know ahead of time which bits are going to be most important to you. But I think that the for me at least, the the side of things which was about taking supplements to improve my digestion, as much as anything else, had a very strong psychological side to it for me as well. I felt like I'm actually concretely doing something. I'm actually, whether or not they improved my digestion psychologically, it made a big deal that I was doing something, and being tested for things as well, because it meant I could actually say to my workplace, I'm doing tests, I'm getting test results. Again, that has a reassuring, so people respond well to that. Oh, it's not all in your head because you're actually being tested for things, and you can show them results and say, look, here it is. I actually do have an issue medically. And again, whether or not ultimately that side of things made a difference in any other way, it still made a profound difference for my mental health and my
Yeah.
sense that I'm making progress.
Yeah, and it's very hard for other people to understand until you've had this kind of situation happen in your life.
Uh,
It's very hard. People are just like, why don't you just eat that thing?
oh
Why
yeah,
don't you just
yes.
do that thing? It is very difficult. Even close people who are close to us can find it quite confronting and quite hard to understand.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not as if I understand everyone else's problems myself, but I think it's a truism to say that other people's problems are the easiest ones to solve. And really, you might not find either in your family or in the regular mainstream medical or health world anyone to support you. So if you can find anyone, and in this case, the Happy Without Histamine program for me was a sense of I'm not alone. There is a body of experience to do with what I'm going through. It's been effective for other people. It could be effective for me too, even if it hasn't yet been, because I've just started, or I haven't even started, but I've enrolled, and I will start in a few weeks. And that in itself, when you're absolutely desperate, really could be critical.
And did you have any sort of skepticism at first or doubt?
Oh, look, I was so desperate, honestly. I wanted to believe. I spent a lot of money on supplements I never even took. I will do anything. I bought supplements that, having bought them, I was then too scared to take them because I didn't know what they were going to do, and I was panicked and anxious ridden, anxiety ridden. So no, I didn't have any. I would say, like I think I said before, I didn't rate the psychological components of the
Mm.
program very highly at all. And when I watched your videos talking about it, in the back of my mind, I said, oh, yeah, nothing wrong. This is in the middle of the worst mental health crisis I've ever had.
Yeah, and we are told from an early age, you go to the doctor, you take a
Oh,
pill, you get better. And that's the expectation. We go and we get checked out. And if it doesn't sit in that realm very easily, then that's when, yeah, people don't understand and it can be a lot harder. And being anchored into a program that's looking at your whole self holistically is helpful because then you're like, look, if there are any red flags, you'll tell me about them. You'll refer me to my doctor. You'll give me this extra information. You're testing me for things. And it brings all of that together.
yeah. And in fact, what I would say, I think, is one of the best things you could probably do is to find a supportive doctor who you can talk to the program about and say, and get them on side, because that's certainly the experience I had. I did have a supportive doctor, and because that doctor will be the intermediary between you and if you're at work like I am, between you and your human resources department, that you need somebody who's in a position to say, yes, this person has got a health problem and they need some support for a while. And as it turned out, I didn't. I was able to work I didn't have to take too long off work,
Mm.
but I had a much longer period of being very unwell. And having the support of doctor was very important. And so even though my doctor didn't provide resources which would help me with my health as such, they were nonetheless able to be aware of the program and to give it their blessing.
Yeah, yeah, get some support from there as well. Yeah, that's wonderful. And so you got back to work again full time, and how's life for you now?
I didn't realize that I was having, so before the program, well, long before even these last few years of bad health I was mentioning, I'd had chronic health issues which I had given up trying to do anything about. But they actually, those more longer standing health issues, energy issues, basically, have been improved. Like I'm healthier now than I was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
And that's very entirely due to the psychological, to the fact that I've been progressively dealing with. I just had no idea how much stored emotion I had, how much unprocessed material there was inside me. And it's been a very uncomfortable period of processing it, but it has had huge effects on my health, positive effects on my health.
yeah. Sometimes it's not always fun. While you're actually processing things, it
No.
doesn't always feel fun.
Oh no,
But
I don't think it ever feels fun to me. I think it's, I don't
but I
think
actually
it,
say, like, when a bad emotion comes up, it's actually like a time to say, yay, good, because it's actually, I'm, my body feels safe enough to show me that emotion and process it now. And
oh
that's a
indeed.
good thing.
Oh, that is a good thing. It is a good thing. But if it was a happy emotion, you never would have been suppressing it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's a very unhappy feeling. I went through periods of intense anger and grief and terrible anxiety and nameless, unhappy feelings. But now I recognize that when I am feeling those things, I recognize this is actually improving my health to be doing this.
Yeah.
And I've seen
Yeah.
that concretely.
Yeah. Because overall, you're seeing that shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important. And even if we don't have a lot from the past, purely being unwell gives you enough grief and anger and all the other things, frustration as it is, to work through and to
Yes.
process.
No, absolutely. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I find the nervous system component, that's the key. That's the differentiator because you can take all the pills and do all the treatments, but for them to really work and stay working and really get that result that you want and not be having to take supplements forever and medications forever and all of those kinds of things and be able to get closer to your preferred life, working with your nervous system and regulating that nervous system, working with emotional things, working with whatever's present for you is that's the missing link, I think, in most people's health stories.
I I have been doing something which I'd call left-handed scribbling, which is basically I'm a right-hander naturally, and just left brain, right brain connecting activity. But I find that when I do it, a lot of emotions will come up for me when I'm doing it. Now, I'm not saying that everyone will get benefit from that, but what I am saying is that processing old emotion is a concrete activity. There's a lot of different things you could be doing to do that. It's important to find what will work for you. It's important to try different things to see what will work for you. The map sessions were a really critical beginning for me. At that time when I started doing them, I was really at rock bottom, and they're very gentle, and they they might, for some people probably like me, they might be one of the few things you can do because you're just too crippled with anxiety and other problems and issues. But I think that for me, at least, that the big lesson is there are concrete things you can do to process old emotions and feelings. and experiences, and you need to find them. And then if you can find something that will work for you, then you should do it as much as you can. I've got to the stage now where I just don't even feel right if I haven't, like when I try and journal, like I've got into a habit of journaling, I'll start writing regular words with my right hand, and very quickly all I want to do is pick up the pen and scribble with my left hand. And it sounds ridiculous, but it genuinely has made an enormous difference to me to do that.
Yeah. Connecting to the other side of your brain. And that's it. Different things work for different people. There are a lot of people who swear by journaling. Like journaling is the thing. If they do that before they go to bed at night, get it out of their heads and it helps. And then for other people, journaling's it just doesn't resonate. And then it's okay, but there are other things you can do. And that's the reason why we have so many tools.
Indeed.
Everyone's different.
I absolutely affirm that. I can't remember what the name of it in the program, but there's a thing where you can imagine where you walk around backwards or sideways. I can't remember what it's called anymore, but the point is that also is something I find quite effective. And again, when I first was reading the program material, I'm thinking, this sounds pretty weird. I don't know how this is going to work. But the point is, it doesn't matter whether you understand it or not. The point is, does it seem to help you?
Yeah.
And if you just find the things which will help you, and there will be things which will help you, very likely, would be my guess.
Yeah, there are a lot of really weird things that they seem really weird, but it's because you're tapping into that's functions of your brain
Indeed.
that are using the opposite sides of the brain and using bilateral movement and all sorts of things that can seem very odd when you see it at first.
That's right. And then I'd say to anyone contemplating the course, if you had all the answers, you wouldn't be here. If you're desperate and you're here in the course because you haven't been coping and you haven't been functioning, and you're obviously your body is not working right. So be a bit open-minded and just try things out and see if they'll work without worrying whether or not you understand why or how.
Yeah. And I found even if you don't think it's going to work, I've seen this before, doing it anyway, it actually still works for people who are doubtful and
totally.
skeptical.
Absolutely.
You just do it and actually it does something. It still works. You don't have to fully be wholly and totally engaged.
It's no different than putting petrol into your petrol tank in a car. You don't have to know how the internal combustion engine works for petrol to still make your car engine run. And that's the same thing here. So the human brain and psychology is extremely complicated, and we really understand very little of it. So the fact that anyone doesn't fully understand how something works is neither here nor there, actually. What matters is you need help, and here's help being offered, and you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah. So that does take us to probably the end. What would you say to people who are watching you now, who are stuck in a pretty tough place and thinking about coming along and getting some help with us?
I'd say, friend, there's many people have been in that tough place, and it's no consolation to you to know that. And and I was in that tough place, and it was really rock bottom for me. And I really needed help, and there was help available. If you were like me and you tried a lot of other things and you couldn't find anyone who seemed to have any solutions, if you found this program, then you must have been following a similar path to me, and continue down that path and really apply yourself. If your experience is at all like mine, you won't have to apply yourself too hard before you'll see enough benefits to make you think that you're on the right path. But I would say treat the psychology angle as the most important angle. Do not hold back on doing whatever you can. And I would say too, if there's a voice inside you that says, no, that's not me, that just proves that it is. That's the best possible proof that it probably is, because it's that voice which is defending probably some really uncomfortable feelings. Those uncomfortable feelings lurk inside us because ultimately they have defense mechanisms. Every time we go near them, it's like a splinter. I kept thinking during the program, it's as if you've got a splinter in your finger, and your whole way of living now becomes avoiding using the hand, which is now a tiny little splinter. This happened to me over Christmas last. I had a splinter in my finger. It was absolutely agony, a tiny little splinter. But now that hand and my whole life is now not functioning because I can't do anything with the hand. And if somebody just bumps that finger, you'll yell out. Tiny little splinter, but a huge impact. And I'd say it's the same thing with this program ultimately, that a little problem, in a sense, buried deep inside you can end up having massive negative consequences. It might not actually take a lot ultimately. That splinter might be tiny, but it's buried under layers. You need the map sessions and the other resources to help it come out. And it might seem tiny when it finally comes out, but its consequences were not tiny.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes it's just something fairly innocuous that happened, but the nervous system has created a world around it. It's avoiding certain things, doing other things, and acting in a certain way as a protection mechanism, because ultimately our brain and body are just trying to keep us safe.
Yeah, and particularly things which happened a long time ago. As a child, nobody gets through their childhood without having challenges and difficulties. And as a child, you don't understand what's going on. It doesn't have to mean anything bad happened to you, but it can certainly mean that at the time you weren't able to really understand it.
Yeah,
And there can be a range of different kinds of things like that. So the issue isn't so much, I think, what happened, or even if it's a thing that happened as such, but just that recognizing that you have an anxiety component to your health. And Luan, like you said before, your health problem alone will cause you anxiety. But probably before this health problem arose, and the problems I was having, I'd had for 3 decades, the health energy problems. I'd had a very long time, and I'd periodically done all kinds of searching, and I had seen mental health practitioners about them, but it had not been effective. It had not got down to. Uh, it's really important to look at things from the right perspective. That's, I think, the critical thing. The program will give you a way of looking at things which you probably don't have, but which is very important to understanding how to improve your situation. And by that, I mean understanding that there is something which is upregulating your autonomic nervous system. Basically, everything it's again in a car that it's as if you've got your foot on the accelerator all the time without realizing it. That's, I think, how it is. And you've got to become aware that, hey, actually my foot's stamping on the accelerator and the engine is screaming unnecessarily. No
yeah, and
wonder
the
I'm tired all
handbrake
the
is
time.
on at the same time.
That's right. That's right. I just got to take my foot off, but I can't take my foot off if I don't even know it's on there to begin with. And that, I think, is the critical thing, is to
Yeah.
realize what is going on inside you, which is being generated inside you and has no external cause at all.
Awareness is the way out for sure. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been amazing to hear about your story, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will resonate with what you've said and the sorts of problems that you've had, and the fact that you're now not having those issues anymore. You
Yeah, it's an
can
absolute
eat whatever you
revelation.
want, you're working,
Yeah,
you're
energy is streets ahead.
back enjoying life.
Yeah, and very much feeling incredibly grateful and looking back at really the not very distant past, but thinking how impossible where I am now seems compared to where I was, and I would say too, last year if someone had said to me, it's going to be months before you start seeing any improvement at the time, that because I was in such a bad way, that would have seemed unbelievably awful because every day was torture. But you won't feel that way once you're on the right path. It won't seem long at all. Every day that you're improving, you won't, all you'll see is, I can get through another day like this because the next day is going to be better than the last one was. And of course, you have ups and downs. Of course, you do. You're on the right path. And I think that's the critical thing, is now that you found this program, you really have nothing to lose. It's all your own work. And that work is something you should do anyway. if
Yeah,
once you know that it exists to do.
that's it. And once you've learned the information, you're empowered. Those are tools that you can use for the rest of your life. You've got that information, you know how it works.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely great. And it is a worldview which doesn't get old. It will remain important for the rest of your life, I would say. For me, it will.
That's so good to hear. And yeah, I'm just so grateful as well for you to come on and to let everybody know that there's hope. And when you're in that place, I know how bad it feels. I've been there and
There's no words.
it's horrendous, but it is possible to get out.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely, for me, it has been. And like I say, I didn't just get out, I became better than I was before. So yeah, absolutely. Just have the courage and the confidence. Find somewhere inside you the courage and the confidence to take a good step forward and use the tools which are available and which have been tried by many people and successfully to start addressing things which have been inside you potentially for quite a long time. And really, it's an opportunity to improve your situation.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for
And
the opportunity to get to speak.
yeah, no, it's good. This is the stuff that helps people when they're up at 3 o'clock in the morning searching on the internet to go, oh, okay, wait a minute. This person's had some similar issues that I've had and they've been able to get better. And giving people hope is that's the first step. And it's so
Indeed.
important.
Indeed, no, I completely agree. And thank you so much. And really, I really appreciate that you've taken the time to develop the program, because without it, there'd just be a lot of people like me who really didn't have any other option.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It was my mission, and it still is my mission to help as many people as possible. So thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us today, Alex. And yeah, go forth and have an amazing life.
Thank you, and you too, and keep up the good work.